Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Planning Commission meeting of September 12th, 2022. For viewers watching at home, some members of the public may be participating via video conference or teleconference. Please stand and join me in reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all. Don't. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Commissioner Buss?
Present.
Commissioner Lanson?
Here.
Commissioner Link?
Here.
Commissioner McMahon? Here. Chair Newman?
Here. Tonight we have with us Deputy Community Development Director John Dugan. Mr. Dugan, are there any written comments, announcements, or continuances at this time?
No continuances, but we do have a supplemental packet with one item of correspondence on tonight's topic.
Thank you. And now is the time for public comment. At this time, any person may address the Commission regarding a city planning matter that is not on this evening's agenda. Should the Commission wish to discuss an issue raised by a member of the public, the issue will be referred to staff for rescheduling on a future agenda. Anyone who would like to speak under public comments must fill out a speaker card in chambers or click Request to Speak on the agenda to receive instructions before the public comments portion of the agenda is called. The speaker's remarks should be addressed to the Commission as a whole and not to an individual commissioner or staff member. Unless otherwise provided by the Commission, speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The screen will show you the remaining time you have. Are there any public speakers this evening?
No.
Seeing shaking heads there. We will move on next to our consent calendar, which contains the minutes of our August 29th, 2022 Special Planning Commission meeting. Are there any comments? And do my fellow commissioners have any comments or a motion to approve the minutes? Commissioner McMahon.
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
Are there any other comments? Will the clerk, Commissioner?
I'm having a quick technical difficulty. I do not have the current meeting agenda on my computer, and I'm not clear on how to get to it. I apologize.
We'll take a quick pause to be sure that all commission members have the current agenda before them.
Can we flash up one of those technical difficulty cards? No? We don't do that anymore.
As long as it's the one from either Futurama or The Simpsons. Okay, we have a motion before us. Will the clerk please prepare us for a vote?
Commissioner Buss?
Aye.
Commissioner Lanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Link?
Abstain?
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Chair Newman?
Abstain.
Motion carries 3-0, Commissioner Link and Chair Newman abstaining.
Very good. We move now to our one public hearing this evening. Will the clerk please open the public hearing?
Hearing having been advertised as required by law is hereby open to consider Agenda Item 7A, Proposed Reduction of Required Parking Lot Landscaping Special Use Permit Major Modification SUMJ 2022-70360 to allow a modification of the Thousand Oaks Municipal Code Zoning Ordinance Section 9-4.2404E1 requiring 10% of the surface parking area to be evenly distributed through the entire parking area to be removed and dispersed in other areas in order to facilitate the installation of solar arrays and associated support structures over the existing parking lots, and find that the project is exempt from CEQA. The property is designated as Employment Park in the Rancho Caneo Specific Plan, SP7, located at 1700 Rancho Caneo Boulevard. The applicant is Solar Optimum Inc. for Takeda Pharmaceuticals.
Thank you. And presenting on behalf of staff this evening is Senior Planner Nizar Slim. Mr. Slim, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Planning Commission and members of the public. The project before you is a request to allow a modified distribution to the required parking lot landscaping. The project site, as stated, is located at 1700 Rancho Conejo Boulevard. More specifically, this is a modification of Thousand Oaks Municipal Code zoning ordinance, section 9-4.2404E, sub E, sub 1, to allow for redistribution of the required 10% landscaping for surface parking area. A little bit of background. The current development that's there now was initiated or approved in 1979. It was Baxter Healthcare Corporation. There have been many cases between then and now. We find ourselves today with this application, 2022-70630, special use permit major mod that was filed in April. It is to allow the installation of 15 solar carports, 2 solar shade canopies, and a ground mount solar array. However, this installation does require an approval to modify the municipal code section 9-4.2404E1 as mentioned. The project description is as follows. As stated, it is a large solar system. It contains 15 detached solar carports over the existing parking lots, 2 solar shade canopies that are going to go over the walkways and outside seating areas, approximately 75,000 square feet of ground-mounted arrays over an unimproved portion of the property, associated electrical and battery equipment, of course, and lastly, a modification for the redistribution of required parking lot landscaping, in this case, 10% minimum. Here's a site plan depicting the areas that are going to receive the solar canopies and the arrays, as well as the ground mount. You see the ground mount here, just west of the parking lot. This slide is just a kind of a 3D rendering, if you will, of what these canopies would look like situated on the parking lot. Now, this is the existing parking lot landscaping that exists in the places where the solar canopies are going to go. If you take the pink area, which is approximately 12,000 square feet, and add it to the remaining parking lot landscaping, it does equate to about 36,000 square feet, or makes up 16% of the required minimum 10% parking lot landscaping to go in the parking areas as well as circulation areas. The requested modification, or the requested modified parking lot landscaping would look like this. Again, just to point this out, the area in blue is the total amount of surface parking area and vehicular circulation. That comprises 227,922 square feet, so roughly 228,000 square feet. Of that figure, there is supposed to be 10% minimum landscape requirement. That's the code that we're looking at. It's not enough that the minimum be met. There is also a section of the code that does talk about the landscaping be evenly distributed throughout the parking area. What we have here now, after that landscaping is removed, we will have a remaining 24,000 square feet, which comes out to just about 11%. So they are retaining that 10%, or just over that 10%. In addition, they are going to be planting 10 sycamore trees, 48-inch box trees, along the setback landscaping, along the setback landscaped area. And that's to offset the trees that are going to be taken away, and also to add for the screening. This next slide shows kind of an example of the parking area we're talking about and the trees that are going to be removed to accommodate carports. They're approximately about 20 feet span, so there's 20 feet between them. These are California sycamores, and they are sort of located on the perimeter area of the parking lot. Here's another view just to show you again where these trees are and how they are right now situated again along the edge of the parking area. This area to the west is actually the unimproved area that's going to receive the ground mount. Here's another view standing on Rancho Conejo Boulevard and looking westward. So you see these trees and this landscaping and this setback will not be modified or touched. That'll remain in place. Here's another view, again, to show the relationship between the parking lot and the existing landscaping, the setback landscaping that is, as seen from one of the vehicle drives. Okay, this tree or these trees, as indicated by the arrow, will be the trees subject for removal. And here's just another view to show, again, the landscaping from a different vantage. This is from across the street. You'll notice that some of these gaps in here, these are going to get filled with the proposed 10 trees to help, again, mitigate for screening. So just again, to get into the special use permit and why we're here tonight. It is for a modification of the code requirement, which requires Planning Commission approval. In this case, we're modifying the section again, 9-4.2404E1, requiring landscaped areas to be evenly distributed throughout the entire parking area. This becomes a Planning Commission decision because the landscaping must be maintained in accordance with the provisions as set forth in section 9-4.2404 unless otherwise approved by the Planning Commission. There is some very small deviations that are allowed by the director, but this goes way above and beyond, so we're here tonight to review that. There needs to be 4 findings made in order to approve this SUP. And I went ahead and abbreviated these a little bit, but the findings will be as follows. That the modification and the project itself will maintain the degree of compatibility of property uses that the zoning ordinance and SPO7 are intended to promote and preserve. They will not result in a use which may be reasonable or reasonably be expected to be obnoxious, dangerous, offensive, or injurious to the public health, safety, or welfare, and will preserve the integrity and character of the zone in which the use will be located and the utility and the value of the property in the zone and in adjacent zones. And lastly, will not become detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, or general welfare. So we start our evaluation. Again, as stated, the proposed solar system is a compatible accessory use to the main research facility, to CADA. And the redistribution of the parking lot landscaping will maintain compatibility with the character of the development and uses in SP7, Rancho Conejo Employment Park. It's for the following reasons. The overall landscaping change and design of the solar arrays are not contradictory to the surrounding development. Approximately 11% of the parking lot landscaping will be retained when there's only a minimum required of 10%. The modification of the parking area landscape will not be a significant deviation from overall function and character of the development for the following reasons. The carports would provide shade otherwise given by the removed trees. The screen of the park, there will be screening of the parking areas from Rancho Conejo that would still exist and still be intact rather because of the existing setback landscaping and the additional proposed plantings, the 10 sycamore trees, California sycamores. And lastly, because there is a retention of 10%, or minimum actually of the 10%, it's actually 11%, landscaping that's required is being maintained. The proposed use is not expected to become obnoxious, dangerous, offensive, or injurious to the public health, safety, or welfare. The solar arrays do not involve any hazardous material production, handling, or odor emissions thereof. Rather, they produce electricity by utilizing solar energy. The photovoltaic system and associated parking lot landscaping modification will preserve the integrity and character of the zone in which the use will be located, and the utility and the value of the property in the zone and in the adjacent zones. Solar energy systems are found in single-family residences all the way on up to industrial buildings. They're not an uncommon feature. The value is obvious, I won't get into that. Well, I will a little bit later. The supporting carports are a common structure type, also found in various development scenarios, whether it be residential, commercial, or industrial. Lastly here, the modification of the parking lot, landscaping, or installation of the solar system will not become detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, convenience, or general welfare. The modification of the landscaping standard would allow, in fact, for cleaner energy, for a cleaner form of energy production, improving to some degree the health, safety, and general welfare of the public. In addition to the four criteria we mentioned, it does meet CEQA exemptions, and there's actually 3 classes it actually qualifies for. Class 3 for new small structures such as carports. Class 11 also defines those as accessory to an existing industrial project, just industrial development. And lastly, Class 32 for infill development, and it does meet all of the 5 exemption criteria. Also, the proposed use is compatible with land uses in the vicinity. Nearby uses include Amazon Distribution Center, Atara Biotherapeutics, and a city municipal service center. All these are of industrial nature and may have similar installations. And this is just a surrounding land use map. Obviously, the site is encircled in red, the subject site that is, and there you see the industrial uses nearby. And there is a residential use apartments. I believe the Arroyo apartments are just down the street, and there is a little bit of a buffer there in between them. Lastly, staff would like to recommend that Planning Commission approve the special use permit 2022-70630 based on the findings and subject to the suggested conditions contained in the attached resolution. And that concludes the presentation. Staff is ready for questions if there are any.
Thank you, Mr. Slim. Commissioners have questions of staff. Commissioner Buzz.
All right, just 2 quick questions. Did you say that some of the neighboring facilities have similar setups at the end there? I know that you noted that similar industrial uses, but did you say they also have solar?
No, sir. What I meant to say was there would be a potential for them to have it. It wouldn't be uncommon for them to have it. I hadn't verified if they do, in fact, have similar solar canopies. Whether they're, I think if you look at the area, there are some solar panels mounted perhaps on some of the roof, but that's about it. I think I was just referring to it as a more common feature if it were so applied to that site. But I don't know. I could not verify if they actually have those or not.
Okay, I'm not following. Because would this be on a case-by-case basis, or would us approving this one set precedent for these other places?
That's a great question. At this point, it is case-by-case basis, but to your point, it is something that staff is going to need to review. We feel this may eventually be a trend forthcoming. So as these research facilities and biotech industry developments come online, this is something we may have to look at down the road.
Okay. And then I was going to ask the history and the intent of the landscape requirement. As far as distribution throughout the parking area, was that for cosmetic and appeal purposes, or is there something beyond the arbitrary and eye appeal that's relevant to that?
It's multifaceted, and I have not been here long enough to give you the folklore on how it came about, but I did speak to somebody who had been here for a while. So it's a couple of things. One is to provide natural shade from the sun elements to the cars. Second is to break up, obviously, the asphalt surface. So it is to provide softening, an aesthetic softening of sorts. And I think lastly is to provide some screening. There are, based on the design guidelines, there are areas where if you have a parking lot or vehicle circulation abutting a public right-of-way, you're supposed to have some sort of bushes and screening for that. So in the areas where they have that right now, they're not proposing removing it as long as it doesn't interfere with the canopies. It's remaining. But those are the three reasons, to my understanding, that was the origination for having parking lot landscaping.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that anticipation.
Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Chair Newman. Thank you, Mr. Slim. Besides the supplemental information that we got this afternoon that's part of our packet, did you receive any other communications from neighbors or anybody else in the community?
No, sir, I did not.
And just so I'm understanding and everybody watching, so if this was just the solar panels, it would not have needed to come before us. It's the landscaping issue that's the only reason it's here, correct?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
And normally, as to landscaping, especially when we look at developments, people notice we have a very high requirement of replacing every one tree with 3 trees as part of some developments. Why does that not apply here?
It's a good question. That standard that you've just quoted does apply to protected trees. And so what I want to make note right now is that these trees that are being removed are not ordinance-sized trees. There are, and I have a slide here to show you if you wanted to see it, there are, for transparency, there are 148 trees that are being removed. Of those 148 trees, only 50 are California sycamores, which otherwise would be protected trees. However, they are under the 12-inch diameter prerequisite to make those protected. Had they been, this would be another discussion, and of course, they would have to figure out a way to supplement, I think it's a 3-to-1 replacement. But because these are not protected, these are literally just landscape trees, unfortunate. They are good trees, and again, you know, we wish we could have saved more, but this is, you know, I think the solar, it's up to you again, but you have to weigh out the solar installation here is quite big. Yeah.
So it sounds like because of those unique circumstances in terms of the size and the type of tree, it doesn't apply that 3-to-1 usual formula we might use in other situations.
Exactly.
The supplemental packet information goes on to provide a different formula in terms of looking at the volume of trees and stuff. That's not something that's part of our current code in the municipal code, is it?
No, sir. It does not, so yeah.
Okay, thank you. Nothing else.
Thank you. Commissioner McMahon.
Thank you. I have 2 questions. The first one is, so with 148 trees going and only 10 coming, what was the percentage of landscaping, or what is it right now with 148 trees?
That's a good question. I can bring up another slide, or rather I can just let you know. So right now they've got about 36,000 square feet, roughly, of parking lot landscaping. That does not include the landscaping that's found in all the perimeter setbacks, or open areas or areas for recreating. So that's in addition to. That 36,000 square feet comprises about 16%. So they're about 6% over their minimum requirement. And currently, it is evenly distributed throughout the parking lot, obviously, because there's no carports there. After the carport installation and removal of those trees, by removing those trees, you've now basically disassembled those components, so that doesn't qualify for parking lot landscaping anymore. You've lost about 12,000 square feet, roughly, and you're left with 11%. So they're still over, but unfortunately, it's not evenly distributed the way the code requires it.
And one more question. Is there a functional reason why the panels are not being put on the roof?
That's a great question. Early discussions with the applicant, because staff did push back a little bit on that. I was told that there's a number of reasons. One, right now, and especially with these type of industries, there's a large amount of rooftop equipment, HVAC equipment to create these positive pressure rooms and clean rooms. And because of that, there would be some competition with these solar arrays. It just wouldn't work out. In addition to, there might be some structural considerations, but I would actually turn that question over to the applicant. They have a better handle on how to properly answer that.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Link.
Question regarding, and thank you for your presentation, Mr. Slim. Question regarding stormwater quality. Are any of the solar arrays going to disrupt any existing stormwater BMPs? Didn't see anything on the plans.
No, sir, and I don't anticipate that being the case. We did get a Public Works memo, and as well as the conditions of approval for Public Works in And I don't want to misspeak here, but nothing stood out, honestly, and I could go back and we could just take a look at them, but they do have some standard language in there that asks them to address that, but I don't think there was any conflict with any of the bioswales or anything like that might have been out there.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Mr. Slim, the staff report described Takeda's energy consumption as formidable. I'm wondering, and perhaps this is a question for the applicant, but I'm wondering if we're able to quantify that, what this plant's current power consumption is, and if we approve this project, what percentage of that would be covered by solar production?
Thank you. I am gonna turn that over to the applicant, but what I will say this is initially, when I first saw this, I was blown away by the amount of solar voltaics. I said, wow, you guys will be able to sell some of this back. And they said, no, sir. This is gonna generate 4.42 megawatts of energy. And essentially, that's only gonna comprise, I think, 50% of their energy consumption. So that's still, to me, it's mind-blowing that they do require that much energy. But anyways, they're best to answer that question.
I'll ask them as well, but I think you did just answer my question, so thank you. And regarding the plants being torn out and the replacements, the 10 plants going in for 150, I understand, following up on Commissioner Lanson's point, that as a statutory matter, these are not protected trees. There's no legal requirement to replace any of them. So the 10 are gravy, essentially, that are going in. My question, though, is there any precedent here for when we replace protected trees, we do so by law at a minimum of 300% replacement. And the city goes above and beyond that. They replace at 400%. And what we're looking at here for non-protected trees is a replacement of less than 7%. So is there precedent here for replacement of non-protected trees?
I mean, I couldn't answer that fully to say if there's precedence or not. We've always maintained that these projects are case-by-case basis. We find ourselves in the middle of a drought right now. So to push the issue of, hey, we need more trees, I think it would be kind of difficult and probably not wise. So it is case by case, given, again, where we're at and current state of the environment and weather. So,
Mr. Dugan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think this is something we needed to consider in the future. So I'm going to be convening the staff to discuss this. I anticipate there'll be further applications like this. It may require a code amendment in the future for these non-protected trees. Maybe we make them protected if they're to be replaced by these types of facilities, or there's a different kind of ratio of replacement. But it's something we need to have some good discussion about in-house, and then we'll bring it back to the commission for further deliberations.
Which is a perfect segue to my final question, is just to underscore that we've heard the word case by case thrown around several times already. I just want to underscore the case before us tonight, per Commissioner Buss's question, is not a precedent setter. It is, as the staff report says, site-specific and use-specific for this applicant at this site only. There are other issues, as Mr. Dugan has just pointed out, but we are not here tonight to make a recommendation to City Council to change municipal code. We are here to grant a waiver in one case at one site. Is that correct?
yes, sir, it is.
Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Buss, I think, had a follow-up.
Yeah, I apologize. I've got one more question for you, sir. So the California sycamores that are currently planted there, were those planted as a result of any other trees being removed from that property as native trees prior? Has anybody looked up what we killed before to build the buildings that we built and the parking lot we built? And if these trees were considered part of that replacement and that they just haven't grown to size to warrant?
I couldn't, I haven't done that history research. Based on the configuration and the way the trees were when I did the site visit, it looked as though they were just there for the purposes of the parking lot landscaping. based on I think, it looks like the time they went in, probably about 15 years ago, roughly. But, you know, they would have came in as like, you know, 2-inch caliper trees. But again, I don't think it was. I don't know, to be honest with you. I haven't looked at the history. Just based, again, on the configuration, the way they were placed around the perimeter is just, they were just for the purposes of the parking lot.
So, dude, there's no way for us to pull that, the previous
we could,
project?
we'd have to go back and take a look at the.
That's not easy to access at the moment. That's not something at the top
I
of your
mean,
fingers.
It takes a little bit of work, honestly, it does, but we could do it, and just to make sure that the trees were there as just part of a landscaping plan and nothing more, that it wasn't to replace.
Because I mean, that could factor in our decision, obviously, if that's an issue. I mean, I assume that there were native plants there at some point.
Yeah, again, couldn't verify that historically, you know, but they did choose that particular species because anytime we have them do plantings, we push for native species.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen that in this, you know, in other decisions we've made. And so that's why I'm asking. But that's not something we could access while these people are here, obviously.
No, sir.
Copy that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, are there any other questions of staff before we move to our applicant? Very well. Our applicant this evening is Solar Optimum on behalf of Takeda Pharmaceuticals. Speaking for the applicant is Mr. Era Krikorian. And please come to the podium. You and your team have up to 15 minutes to present. And we ask that you give your name and city of residence for the record. Good evening.
For your time. Is this working?
It is now.
Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you. My name is Ara Krikorian. My city of residence is Lake Forest, California, so South Orange County. I do have just a couple slides if you guys would like to see, but I can recite some of the information as Mr. Slim did instead of showing a visual. I'd prefer to field questions that Mr. Bruss, Mr. Newman Dugan, Ms. McMahon brought up during the process, as well as Mr. Dugan. I was told that the main part of this discussion is the environmental impact, which seems to be the case with the trees being removed. One of the commissioners asked if there's precedent for this in the city of Thousand Oaks. I definitely don't know the specifics here. But I can tell you on many projects, there has been the need to remove trees to go green, which is kind of oxymoronic. But the numbers speak for themselves in terms of the carbon offset, as well as the environmental impact calculated by the EPA. So I can go through that for this project, and I can tell you, not anecdotally, but actually what projects we've done in the past where we have had to remove trees, and the justification for those two. This is a large campus with 142 trees, I think we just mentioned. That is a sizable amount of trees. They're not full grown, but still, it's trees being removed, and we prefer not to whenever we have that ability. I'll give you a few metrics to compare that to, and the reason why the adoption of solar, even with the removal of trees, is usually the path forward. And in terms of the trees that we're removing, in terms of the solar we're putting on the site, it's offsetting 5,862 acres of U.S. forests per year. So when we're talking about 142 trees being removed, one thing that we are leaving out is the actual impact in terms of those trees and what that compares to. So it's absolutely unfortunate anytime we have to remove a tree to put a carport up. But the reality of the impact of that solar is that it's not just an order of magnitude, but orders of magnitude larger in terms of the carbon offset. So it would be close to 6,000 acres of trees on an annual basis that we're offsetting with that 4.44 megawatt solar array. And again, you can look at that carbon offset through the EPA's website in many different ways. It's over 500,000 gallons of gasoline consumed. It's 1,700 tons of waste recycled instead of landfilled. It's 5.5 million pounds of coal burned on an annual basis. So these are massive numbers on an annual basis, and let's call it the justification for that offset between the trees and the solar. Those numbers are what you can look up or what I can share with you. I believe Mr. Slim has most of that also to share with the Planning Commission. In terms of precedent here, I don't believe it falls under the jurisdiction of Thousand Oaks, but it's within the Thousand Oaks borders. I believe Caltrans has just across the street, is it? Across the street, there's carports and canopies, very similar to what we're proposing, but it's not part of, I believe there's a different, it doesn't go through normal planning commission when it's Caltrans sites. But the main purpose of our presentation is to justify that environmental impact of the solar versus the tree removals. And we were told to provide 3D renderings of the site too. And again, I have a few slides here if you guys want to get into the specifics of the offsets, but I'd much rather answer the questions directly that you guys have for us.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Commissioners, are there questions of the applicant? Commissioner McMahon.
Yes, if I remember correctly, Mr. Slim said that this will cover about 50% of your electric needs?
I believe it's about 40. Is it?
40%.
It's about 40%, 45%. So we're producing just a hair under 7 gigawatt hours of energy on an annual basis. And that accounts for about 45% of the campus.
Are there plans in the future to put in more solar to?
If they had the room for it, they would probably want to do it now. So I can't speak for Takeda Pharmaceuticals, but we're essentially maximizing the capacity of solar as well as batteries that make sense for the facility without going overboard and actually causing a planning commission issue.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Chair Newman. I'll ask the obvious question. I'm looking at the picture in front of us, and I see, again, from this distance, a roof that looks empty of
That's
anything.
not the case.
So, again, the obvious question is, why can't that black stuff be on the white stuff?
So in this planning commission meeting, I do represent Takeda, but I don't know all the specifics about the engineering of the facility, but I can tell you that we went through this process a few times early on, probably a year and a half ago. A few things. There is an incredible amount of equipment on that roof. So if you were to try to quantify how much solar we would be able to put on that roof as is, it's definitely not a clean slate like that. I believe Mr. Slim stated there's about 15 carports that we're putting up, as well as 2 canopies. The rooftop would probably hardly hold 1 carport's worth of solar, so, and it would be broken up. So in terms of capacity, there's really no significant impact by utilizing the roof. There's a ton of HVAC equipment, as well as other equipment that the pharmaceutical company needs to operate. And just based on my experience, these rooftops with that equipment, every few years it's changing. So they will remove equipment, they'll put bigger equipment someplace else, and it's fairly dynamic on the rooftop of a pharmaceutical company. One more important facet of this, and again, I can defer to representatives of the pharmaceutical company directly, but one important facet is structurally, it puts loads on the roof. But more importantly, when you're dealing with a pharmaceutical company that's operating with clean rooms, positive pressure rooms, and cold rooms, the slightest issue that you cause to that roof will significantly impact their day-to-day operations. So although at face value a rooftop solution is what we would normally pursue with any one of our clients, and although it's a less expensive solution 9 out of 10 times, the avoided issues and complications that utilizing the rooftop bring, especially given the amount of usable space there is. I think it was a no-brainer for the facility, for the company. So the main issue is that if you impact the pharmaceutical clean rooms and the positive pressure rooms and the cold rooms by having a penetration, I've actually seen this at another pharmaceutical company, not having to do with a solar project, but when you puncture the roof, if it's in a cold room, you start forming massive icicles, and you don't want to affect the integrity of the pharmaceutical clean rooms for what they're producing. So these are injectable drugs. These are not a sports bar that you're consuming. So it's the impact to those facilities is definitely above and beyond what a normal commercial facility would need to assess.
You know, the interesting thing is, I think once we start turning to solar, everybody wants the system and the evolution to go quicker. I think, you know, years ago I heard that we were just on the verge of having ceiling tiles that were going to have solar capabilities, and of course we haven't gotten there yet. So again, once we turn to it, we want it to actually be far more functional. So another obvious question as I look at the board here is, surrounding the facility is a bunch of what's green, which I'm assuming was taken way before our drought. Who owns the land that's on the outskirts of that? Because that looks like it could be a good place as an alternative site to put that.
Do we have answers as to who owns your border? I mean, your neighboring properties?
I know.
So the parcels on either side are owned by Takeda, according to our
On the
ops.
backside, again, I know this is a rendering, so it's probably not factually accurate. That was where I was getting at, is that there's surrounding area on the other side of the building looks like it's open space. I'm assuming that's city
Casca.
property. Mr. Here, would that be city
According,
property?
according to Google Maps, it's Casca.
Okay. So that's not something that
Conejo
would be an
open
alternative
space?
site.
Okay.
And again, did you check out any other sites that would be available to put these panels aside from where you have them?
We did. So we are utilizing the ground mount, the ground area directly to the, let's call it northwest of the campus. And naturally, I mean, that could be a site for future development, but they're investing in renewable energy for the site as opposed to just growing buildings on that site. So that ground mount area is feasible and is utilized. Maybe it's on the different, does the other rendering show the ground mount? Oh, no, you can see it over there on the far left, yes. Apologies,
Right.
my angle is a little
Obscure.
less direct than yours. So the ground mount that we are able to use, we are using. And the carport area, again, there's the form and function of it. I mean, providing the shade, which is more shade to the cars and the employees and the customers of Takeda than the trees would, is also one of the benefits. But to the same point, I believe I was answering with Ms. McMahon, the carports are not the solution that most companies would pursue, because they are significantly more expensive because you're using a lot more steel. It's directly due to the fact that the rooftop provides minimal offset capabilities, as well as all the other complications, and the massive loads that the pharmaceutical company consumes for the production of pharmaceutical grade.
As part of the carports, will there be any ability for the employees to hook up to the panels
Yes.
for purpose of recharging?
Yes, so we are installed, they do have, I believe, I don't know how many you currently have, but there are EV charging stations currently, and we are supplementing that with 8 extra EV charging stations.
And are you storing any of the energy? I mean, are you having batteries on site, so to speak?
So we are putting a couple large, they're called Tesla Megapacks, so they're container-sized batteries, and again, those have multiple benefits to their bills, as well as the utilization of the solar energy. So they're predominantly charged from the solar, and they also help out with the massive demand spikes and usage that the facility would be essentially, let's call it, I don't want to call it burdening the grid, but when you're using a lot of power in one site, it's harsher on the grid than without it. So the utilities charge for that separately. So having the batteries supplementing the solar provides the benefits to the energy consumed, as well as the demand offsets that the facility would be producing on site, essentially, from the
Yeah,
batteries.
Just interesting how we've all learned what a flex alert is recently.
Very recently,
And I'll
yeah.
get off of my questioning. I know others have questions, but you're taking out trees and you're putting in 10. Why not just leave 10 there as opposed to putting in 10 new ones?
So my understanding, and again, I can go to my technical and ops people, but my understanding is that it's not just my understanding, I think this is the reality of it. The carports are going into the parking areas. If we're putting the canopies where those trees are, where they would normally have landscaping in between the parking, the cars facing each other, the whole purpose of putting the carport is to cover the entire parking area as best possible. So if we were to leave 10 trees, it would mean that we would reduce the amount of solar on site. Whereas if we're able to reallocate those trees to further shield the street from I think of it as a benefit to see it, but I think it's PR and marketing for the city as well as Takeda. But let's say that it's something that the city personnel as well as the citizens don't want to be seeing as much of. The reason for the 10 going on the perimeter is for that shielding effort, I believe, and Mr. Slim can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but that's the reason for not just leaving the 10 trees. Reallocating it allows you to have more of a carbon offset.
And my last question, have you received any communications from neighbors either interested in the concept of joining you or upset about it or in any way communicating an issue?
Nothing negative. I definitely have not heard anything negative from the company. I don't know if we've heard any positive specifically from this project. I think people get more interested once they start seeing it going up. I don't know what the percentage of the population is that's looking through the Planning Commission meeting minutes before the project happens. But once you see mobilization on site and they start seeing the erection of the solar facilities, that's when you start getting more interest into the project. So I can speak to what we've seen in the past from other cities and other projects that we've done all throughout California, but specifically from this project in Thousand Oaks, not yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, Commissioner Buzz.
All right, we've talked a lot about how many trees we're going to kill. Can you tell me how many trees are on the facility and will remain alive on the 11% of the property that will remain landscaped?
What's the number? Mr. Nazar, do we have that slide to show how many trees we have on the site?
I think the slide doesn't, well, we can take a look. I think it shows what's being removed.
We have a landscaping report.
Attached? I didn't,
That was not part of our packet.
it might have been in the fine print in attachment 5. Maybe I missed it,
Oh,
but
okay.
I didn't see it.
There wasn't, the Arbus report was something supplementary to the application. But basically, yeah, I'm going to have the report. I can make it available.
I was just told that the landscaping report doesn't show the total, it just it shows the
This is
ones impacted.
What I have up right now is what I have. And so it does show only the trees that are removed. So it just doesn't show what's retained. It does show the amount of trees being removed, where they are, and the species. So.
Oh, we didn't do a count on the retained?
No, sir. There's, the retained trees were not enumerated. They were just considered as part of the landscaping.
I would just, this kind of follows into my other question about, what was the important significance of these trees? I am curious what was there and why it's there, and my initial question was, is our landscaping plan arbitrary or important? It all kind of flows together. So in the future, when we're presenting these would be the things I'd be most interested in, just so you know. And it sounds like I'm not going to get answers on it tonight.
Thank you. Commissioner Link.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had a general question about the landscaping. So the intent obviously is, well, I hope, these are still going to be landscaped areas, so they will be planted, correct? So you're
what do you mean,
removing
the
the trees
perimeter?
in order, so you're removing the trees in order to facilitate the installation of the canopies.
Yes.
But the areas beneath are still going to be planted, either with some kind of shade-type planting or what have you that can actually be supported or live underneath that?
I don't believe so, because then it just grows into the canopies directly.
Excuse me, sir,
Yes.
because we're being televised, I didn't invite you to come up to the podium, so we can have this discussion be part of
Apologies.
the... No worries.
Yes, so we
Just want to
did-
make sure you have your say. And sir, if you could, we request that you give your name and city of residence, please.
Yes, Eric Godinez, LA, Los Angeles, and I am operations manager for Solar Optimum. And we did discuss about keeping shrubbery in those areas. Trees would just end up growing into the modules. The module technology we're using is called bifacial, which does allow some light to come through the modules. So, we don't want to completely take out what's there, only the trees that are affecting the modules.
I mean, that would make sense. I'm familiar with a certain city that will go unnamed that has canopies over the top of a parking lot, and we still have plants underneath. So I would assume that obviously that you are removing trees, and I'm, again, wrapping my head around the fact that I have to cut down a tree in order to save carbon, or I'm not saving carbon, I'm capturing carbon. Yeah, so we're removing trees in order to then take the CO2 out of the environment here. But again, these areas can still be used for planting. They would just be low shrubs or various things that can be supported in lower light conditions, correct?
Correct.
And those are not going to be impacted.
No.
Whatever's, so it's specifically the trees that are going to be impacted, none of the other underlying landscaping.
Understood, thank you.
Okay, in terms of division of labor, just so I understand, you're in the solar power business. Are you also responsible for the landscaping at the Takeda facility, or is that someone from Takeda who decides what plants go where?
So I know Takeda has a contract with Brightview, who handles the landscaping for them. They do have, I believe, a maintenance contract with Brightview already to maintain their trees and existing landscape.
Right, that's the landscaping company that does it. I guess my question is really, though, who decides that, for example, there'll be these 10 sycamore trees going in, and they'll go in at this specific location, or who would decide whether more plants would be put somewhere else?
So the 10 trees came into the plan when we were having early discussions about the tree removal, and we looked at the right-of-way, and we noticed that there were some gaps in the tree line, that existing tree line. So I believe it was Mr. Nazar who suggested maybe we add some trees to fill in those gaps to kind of give you a little more greenery on the right-of-way and not show so much of the carports.
Okay, so in that case, city staff recommended that.
Correct.
And again, just so I understand how I'm not familiar with how the division of labor works in a project like this. When you're preparing your solar plans, and the project plan set is very specific about these panels go here, and each one has this many watts, and the production is there, and all of that. Is it your company's decision where the plants go, or is that something that you develop in consultation with Takeda, or how does that work?
That's something that would be developed in consultation with Takeda.
Okay. Where I'm going with this is, I'm wondering, because there's been a lot of questions about going from 148 down to 10, which again is less than 7% of what's being torn out, who is able to say whether there's additional space or additional planning that could be done?
I believe that would be based on Takeda's future needs. And I know that there's a few construction projects other than ours going on right now, so it would be in consultation with Takeda.
Right. Is there a Takeda representative on hand this evening?
Yes.
Okay. If you would, sir, I'd like to call you up and again, just pro forma, ask if you could give your name and city of residence, please.
Hello, my name is Alberto Elenes, and I work at Takeda Pharmaceuticals, and I live in Thousand Oaks.
Very good. And my question is twofold. First, is there other space on the campus here to put more than 10 trees to replace the 148 that we're ripping out? And second, is that something that Takeda is either entertaining now or would be willing to entertain in the future?
I can't speak to the current plans, but I know that we don't typically modify the landscaping often, so we don't have someone that has that on their radar. I know that in the last 10 years, we've gone from turf to drought-tolerant plants. So most of our campus has succulents and drought-resistant landscaping. So they haven't added many trees in those last 10 years for water conservation. So I don't see that in our future plans, but shrubbery or drought-tolerant plantings could be an option, but I'd have to defer to my management to see if something's in the works.
Right, and to be clear, my understanding, and Mr. Heher can correct me if I'm incorrect about this, but my understanding of our landscaping law is that parking lots be landscaped, not necessarily that they have trees, just that they be landscaped. So I'm not attempting in any way to design your property from this dais. That's not what we're about here. But it could be drought tolerant. It could be something other than trees. The trees, my understanding from Mr. Godinez here, is that the reason it was trees at that location was visual, was to block the public view of this massive amount of solar capacity that's going in. But in other places, like there could be. Yeah, and that's really what I'm getting at, is I'm asking, or I'm trying to find out, is there enough space on campus to put in additional landscaping of any kind, be it a tree or more
Minimal
shrubbery?
amounts, but yes, there would be areas, especially where the trees are being removed, that would be areas where shrubberies or other drought-tolerant plants could be planted. But we would have to plan after the structures are installed.
Understood.
To see where it's available.
Understood. And as well, if we're counting here, Commissioner Link just asked, and I think the answer was affirmative, that there is still some landscaping under these new carports,
Yes.
right? There's shrubs or something
Yes.
that can tolerate lower levels of light, but there'll still be some planting there. Are those counted toward the 10% requirement?
No, it was not, they're not counted towards the 10%.
I see. Okay. Okay, very good. My next question is about some figures that Mr. Krikorian threw out about the carbon offsets.
Yes.
These are very useful in terms of helping a layman understand how much carbon is being offset here. It's quite a lot. You said 6,000 acres of trees.
5,862 trees a year. Sorry, 5,862 acres
Acres
of trees
So nearly
a year.
6,000.
Nearly 6,000,
Right.
yes.
500,000 gallons of gas.
557,000 gallons of gas.
Round figures,
Yes,
but yeah,
yes.
yeah. My question is are there ands between these different comparisons, or are they ors? Is it?
These are ores.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it's yes.
Okay, so these are just individual points.
It's just
of
looking
comparison.
at the carbon offset in different ways according to the EPA's calculations.
Okay.
So yes, I mean, there's about 40 different ways they break it out, and
Mm-hmm.
I've picked 5 which I believe are the most relevant in
Okay.
terms of the visual representation.
And I would agree, they do their job of showing how large a carbon offset the solar would represent. Okay, I think that's all the questions I have. Thank you. Our commissioners, are there other? Great.
I believe to answer Mr. Buss, sorry,
Sure,
sorry,
please.
before you guys close it out, I'm not an arborist, and I'm not an expert in this field, but knowing the campus and seeing the landscaping around the campus, especially the ground mount area, your question was, what's being what was the purpose of these trees if it wasn't just for landscaping purposes for the parking. I don't think I've seen any trees other than shrubs on the ground, because we know that we have to grub the ground, but I don't think there are any other trees around the campus, unless there were some specific trees there that they removed for the parking, which is, I think, what you were asking.
All this land was leveled
Yeah.
decades ago. And so that's why I was asking him about that, because if you look beyond the campus there and you look out into the open space,
Yes.
that's what all this looked like before.
And that's what
I've lived here
that's
long
what
enough to remember when the housing and all of that you drive by didn't exist either. I've been here a long time, and that's why I asked these questions about what was this before. And as people have mentioned, you may not be aware of, Thousand Oaks has a very strict policy
Yes.
about replacing trees that were destroyed before.
It's called Thousand
And we're
Oaks.
talking about an area where trees were undoubtedly taken out and where land was regraded and re-leveled. And now we're asking to take those trees out again. And there's a distinct possibility that those trees that exist that you're asking to take out were replacements for trees that we agreed to remove and replace the threefold. And now we're allowing you to do it possibly, or you're asking us to do, to give the 7%.
Understood.
And so that's a consideration, because literally the foundation of the city was based upon the fact that we would preserve these elements and that we would try to live in harmony with the environment we find ourselves in.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's why I'm asking these questions.
No, and that's
It's very important to the character of the city and kind of why this city was incorporated.
And understanding where you're coming from, when I look at the periphery, the horizon around the property, not their campus specifically, you don't, it's mainly shrubs. I don't think I've seen trees on that level area outside of the campus, and that's, I'm
We go hiking
piggybacking off of
sometime,
what
I'll
you're
take
saying.
you.
What was that?
I said I'd take you hiking sometime. We'll check it out.
Very good. I think Mr. Heher has a statement at this point.
Just for clarification with staff, in the conditions that we have, there's condition number 2 that talks about the project plan set, and it's dated July 13th, 2022. And looking at the last exhibit or attachment to this report, I believe we have a new plan set dated September 9th, 2022. Is that correct, Mr.?
Yes, sir. Both in section 1 and in section 2, the project plan set should read September 9th, 2022.
Right. Just making that clarification for any motions that are taking place.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of applicants before we go to public comments? Very good. Thank you. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we will go to public comments. I think we have 2 public speakers this evening, both of whom are remote. So with 2 speakers, each will have up to 5 minutes. And these speakers will be from the Conejo Climate Coalition, Clint Fultz, and then Roseanne Witt. Mr. Fultz, are you with us?
Yes, hello, my name is Clint Fultz, and I'm a resident of Thousand Oaks. So the questions that I had about this project have been answered this evening. Thank you to the gentleman from Solar Optimum, and thank you to the planning commissioners. This project stands to offset a great deal of dirty power and replace it with a significant amount of renewable power generated on site from large photovoltaic system and a battery backup, which is absolutely needs to happen to reduce greenhouse gases here in California. Personally, I would like to see as many trees relocated as possible, if that is a possibility. Otherwise, this installation of solar and battery backup is definitely a net positive. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fultz. Moving on to Ms. Roseanne Witt. Good evening, Ms. Witt.
Good evening, Chair Newman and Commissioners. My name is Roseanne Witt. I live in TO. The Conejo Climate Coalition enthusiastically supports generating energy from solar installed on the built environment, especially rooftops, as one of the most effective strategies to fight both the escalating climate emergency, which just forced all of us to combat the pervasive to endure a sweltering 10-day heat dome, and to combat the pervasive ecological collapse that literally threatens the survival of all life on Earth, including human life. Data indicate expanding, not slowing climate impacts. Your every decision must solve for multiple problems at once. Rooftop solar is a win-win for a stable climate, healthy biodiversity, and human safety. But Takeda proposes the false binary of either solar or nature. We can and must have both. Our planning department must prioritize the conservation and restoration of native trees and strengthen their role in climate and environmental policy. The trees produce the oxygen we breathe and clean air pollution. Trees reduce healthcare, environmental, and heating and cooling costs by providing shade and evapotranspiration that reduce heat waves and urban heat island impacts, and by capturing and storing carbon. Trees absorb noise pollution and buffer wind. Trees protect soil from erosion, reducing the risk of landslides. Trees provide wildlife, including migrating birds and pollinators, with food and shelter, enhancing biodiversity. Trees maintain clean water quality through filtration and reduce water-related risks like floods and droughts. Trees reduce stress and enhance well-being. Trees provide community benefits, whether they are protected heritage trees or landscape trees. Takeda requests a waiver to cut down 148 trees because all are under 10 inches in diameter, about the width of a dinner plate, and proposes to transplant just 10. That's a net loss of 138 trees. Nursery trees do not provide the carbon storage, water retention, or wildlife habitat a single mature tree offers. Our city must require destroyed trees be replaced on a mass for mass basis. While the Conejo Climate Coalition advocates for solar plus battery storage in the Conejo Valley and applauds Takeda for adding clean energy generation on site, key questions need to be addressed before we can lend our support, including a tree inventory of impacted species. Takeda and future projects should be encouraged to maximize a rooftop array rather than removing any ecologically valuable native trees. And if infeasible and tree removal is necessary, the number of ecologically valuable trees taken should be minimized, and a one-to-one mitigation on or off-site needs to be required. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Witt. Commissioners, are there any questions of our public speakers? All right, we now go back to staff.
I have nothing to add.
Very good. Commissioner Buss.
Oh, I can't operate a microphone, sorry. Planner Slim, I just have one question. We learned from the presenter, the applicant, that the suggestion was made by staff to do infill on those trees, the 10 trees that are going to be planted. My only question on that is, what do you think the survivability of those trees that are going to be planted as infill are, considering we're in a significant drought? Do they have the irrigation necessary and all that fun stuff, or are we just asking them to do that for fun?
That will bear out in what will be required landscaping plan check. So they'll have to come in and show us that landscaping plan check that'll have all the components with it, along with it, to survive the insurability of that, or to ensure the viability of the trees being planted. Another reason we ask for 48-inch box trees is they're typically larger, and so they have a higher survival rate than planting a 24-inch box tree.
So they're actually undertaking the obligation to keep those trees alive if they agree to that. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely, with the planting, yes.
I was just curious. It seemed like it was something imposed on you and something you undertook voluntarily, so I was just curious. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions of staff? Commissioner Link.
I think I caused myself another question, or to ask another question, since I had asked about whether the area underneath the canopies could still be landscaped. Why are they not allowed to be counted if they can be landscaped?
Good question. I mean, so to kind of take a step back, So the parking lot landscaping has a specific definition, depending where you look in the design guidelines. And I'm going to go ahead and just kind of talk a little bit about it. Where you have perimeter landscaping that's abutting another lot and just not a street, you typically have to have ground cover and a tree, typically every 20 feet or so. In areas where you have more than 10 stalls, I believe it's additional tree. So interior, you'd have 10 stalls, you'd have to have a peninsula with a tree and ground cover. If you have parking area or vehicular circulation that abuts the public right-of-way, you not only have to have, ground cover gets to compete, but you have to have shrubbery, at least I think 3 to 4 feet high, tall, to help with headlights and trees. Once you dismantle that configuration, once you say take out a tree, it no longer qualifies for parking lot landscaping. We can't use it. We can't say that because you retained your ground cover, whether it be succulents or what have you, that it is now considered part of your landscaping requirement. So because you've dismantled that component. With that, we're not telling them they can't have additional ground cover to soften the area up, or even small low-lying shrubs that sort of mimic ground cover. And that certainly could be part of the solution. But ultimately, we don't want to get in a situation where they're forced to plant something that's going to be in competition with maintenance, what have you, and installation of these things, because ultimately it becomes a struggle down the road, and they those things kind of not maintain them. So.
Understood. No, that's perfectly clear. Thank you. They will have to hose these things off twice a year, though, to maintain the optimum efficiency. So we can expect that even in a drought year, that they will need to be cleaning the panels. That's just an aside.
Okay.
I want to just follow up on a point made by one of our public speakers. Mr. Slim, in the staff report, you mentioned that one of the benefits of these carport coverings is that they provide shade for the cars, and that's true, they certainly do. But unlike a tree, which also provides shade, as one of the public speakers noted, carport covers are not carbon stores, they're not sources of water retention, they're not habitat for wildlife. Was any of that a consideration in looking at the removal of 148 trees and the replacement of just 10?
It was. I mean, the consideration wasn't made lightly because, as I said, I did do the site visit. They were, looked like healthy trees. The one thing to consider, I mean, yes, a tree, eventually when these things maybe matured and the canopy started to come close to crossing, they would have been a great habitat for critters and what have you. But so, I mean, we realize that this is the case, that there is a loss there. And we did consider that. So.
Okay. I mean, this is, I think, is really more, it's relevant in this case. It's relevant in all cases. I think it's definitely going to be relevant for this future discussion that Mr. Dugan related to. I mean, there are these tremendous benefits from trees, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
great. All right. Thank you. Any other questions of staff? Okay, we go back to the applicant to provide you the opportunity for rebuttal. If you wish to rebut anything you've heard, you have 5 minutes to do so, or not, but that's. Can you step up, please? Thank you.
I apologize for that. I believe we've discussed all the topics that were brought up by the public speakers too. Unless there are any other questions of us, I don't think there's any value in me rehashing the benefits of the project environmentally or for the physical location. I mean, I believe Mr. Slim, as well as the Planning Commission, you guys have asked the questions, and the public speakers have asked the right questions, and I believe we've answered them sufficiently. So unless there's anything extra that you guys would like us to add a little bit more color to the discussion, or anything specific or technical, I I don't think there's anything I would want to rebut.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions of our applicant? Thank you very much.
Thank you. No?
All good. Thank you. Does someone have their cell phone close to a mic? Maybe me. All right, we will go ahead and close our public hearing, and I will open the floor for discussion or a motion. Commissioner Lanson.
Thank you, Chair Newman, and thank you to the applicant for going through the information and very detailed information, and for bringing visuals, which always tends to help. As you can see, we do take our trees seriously here. As you said, our city is named after a tree, which is why we take them so seriously. What I always do as part of this process is go back to specifically what our job is, and to that extent, we're an executive body. We're not a legislative body. And if you look at the specific staff report, it indicates we're looking at Municipal Code Section 9-4.2404E1, which talks about requiring a minimum of 10% of the surface parking area landscaping to be evenly distributed over the entire parking lot area. And what we're seeking here is a modification as to this project to have that 10% in a very specific designated area. The other discussion about what the solar panels are going to do and whether employees use them, and again, by the way, if we'll extend our law at some point to non-heritage trees or trees with less diameter or trees that have a mass-to-mass relation, all of that sounds fantastic to me. I'd love to have that discussion, but to me, that's beyond the scope of this statute, and my job as a planning commissioner is to enforce this statute. So I personally believe that the circumstances exist to allow this modification based upon, again, the factors cited by Mr. Slim and the specific code section we have involved. Again, I would love to see a discussion later on with regard to trying to find other ways to save and protect a lot of the trees that we have, and provide all the things that Ms. Witt provided. I 100% agree. It's just we're not a legislative body. We don't make law. So I am going to go ahead and move to approve this motion. Do I have to say the whole thing? No, he said no. So I'm going to go ahead and move to approve this motion.
Very good. Commissioners, are there other comments? Commissioner Link.
Well, that's not fair. I generally read off the entire thing. Patrick, where have you been?
That's why he said yes.
Just for all of you, I just would say that the motion is to approve staff's recommendation. I just want to add to the fact that we do have that one change to the conditions number 1 and 2 for the record.
Actually, before you go on, I just want to note the language in the staff report to this point. The staff report says the request is to allow a modification of the municipal code. And my understanding, based on everything we've discussed tonight, is that we are not modifying, we are granting a waiver to the municipal code, correct?
You are
A one-time waiver.
correct. You are, on this particular case, which is within the statutory authority given to the Planning Commission to waive this requirement, as Mr. Lanson specifically stated,
Yes.
to evenly distribute the landscaping through the parking lot. That is the very specific thing that you are deciding tonight.
Very good. Commissioner Link, I'm sorry.
Not a
Thanks for
problem.
that
Yeah, so it's just a major modification is what we're approving here. It's not a modification, it's not a code text amendment. So that's the distinction with what we're talking about here. But anyway, before I lose my train of thought, if I haven't lost it already, I think in the best of circumstances, what we would like to do is have both in all cases. I mean, we want to have everything. We want to be able to have solar. We want to be able to have the trees that are going to be doing the things that the solar can't do, but at the same time, everything needs to be a trade-off. And given the apparently massive amounts of electricity that Takeda consumes, this to me seems to be a logical trade-off, that in order to facilitate the goals that are the lofty goals that the state has established. And given that this, I'm going to assume that there's probably some help that Takeda is being provided otherwise. And if they're not, I mean, kudos to you for putting together such a massive project that taking the responsibility and trying to offset the amount of energy that is consumed at this facility through this project is commendable. So I would say that despite the number of trees being removed, and I could see that these trees, whether there were hundreds of trees removed as a result of this project back in 1991. I would imagine if there was something that needed to be replaced, it would have been replaced in kind at the time, especially if it was an oak tree. And whatever rules were in place in 91, we would have seen a whole lot more oak trees on this site than we do and we don't. So that what had been there and would have needed to be replaced had been replaced responsibly. And in this case, frankly, there hasn't been enough time, and in that end of town, probably not enough water to get anything to a size that is significant that reaches the level of needing to be replaced, 3 to 1 or 4 to 1, whatever that ratio might be. But anyway, so the long way of going around by saying I think that this is a good trade-off and it's an acceptable trade-off given the circumstances, so I will support this.
Commissioner McMahon.
I agree with what has been said before, and I've also been thinking about the brownouts. I've been thinking about the rest of the city, and when we have these rolling brownouts or blackouts, and by allowing you to do this, perhaps we avoid a few of them for the rest of the community. I think of that, and I also think of the employees who are looking at an awful lot of asphalt, which radiates heat. They get into their hot cars, and as nice as trees are, we love trees, but they don't do as much to shade the cars as the carports will do. So I think, although I do not like to see all the trees being removed, I think that there are so many benefits to this for not just Takeda, but for the rest of the community. I'm going to vote for it.
Commissioner Buzz.
So I originally got this packet. I was taking the train through Chatsworth to Glendale, and I opened it up while I was, if anybody's ridden that train, you go through a lot of industrial areas in the San Fernando Valley. And so when I ended up going to this site and this facility, and I see the rendering that you guys did, I do consider that we're killing 148 trees, but I do consider ourselves very lucky out here that we have so many trees in what we would consider our industrial manufacturing areas. I'm very grateful that we're preserving the 10-11% of the landscaping over there. And I'm under the understanding that Congress federally passed legislation that's going to involve the additional 1 billion solar panels to our production grid nationally, and I'm grateful to see your company working hard to make that happen in our local area, considering the demands that are being put on our electrical grid. I'm also grateful to Takeda for being forward-thinking in trying to find ways to make it easier for them to expand their operations and keep their operations going, and at the same time be a wonderful corporate resident of this community. And so I'm grateful for that. I know we asked a lot of weird questions about trees and are very serious about it, but I'm also a firm believer that perfect is the enemy of good, and this is definitely a good project and a good benefit to our community. And so I do hope in the future that that city staff will take into account the history of these parcels and whether the trees that we're asked to remove are trees that we used as replacements in the past. Because I would say that, you know, we may be self-defeating at some point if we allow too many of these projects to continue without knowing what our history is and what our future is. But saying that, that's on us, not on you guys. I firmly believe that you've done a wonderful job presenting, and I thank you. And with that, I offer my support as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. I would start by saying we wouldn't be doing our job if we weren't up here asking weird questions about trees. That's why we're here. We take our trees seriously, and as you can see, it's an important part of our namesake, but it's more than just shade, and it's more than just the psychic benefits, which we all enjoy, and we should as people. Trees are wonderful to have around. There are things that we need right now. They do carbon capture. They do water retention. That we just don't get from other kinds of structures, including the ones that already have been administratively approved here. I'm glad this is not a precedent-setting case, because I am concerned that a replacement ratio of 6.7% is really badly insufficient. And I applaud Takeda for being a good citizen of Thousand Oaks and for taking this very forward-looking step to put in this very wide-ranging, large-scale solar installation. I think it's terrific. You're doing a good thing, not only for yourselves, but for your community, and I applaud that. At the same time, I want to be clear-eyed about this, that you are removing this benefit of these trees, and they may not be from what was in the natural state of the land before. These were trees put in by previous landscapers. I understand that. They're not protected. But the reason I'm saying I don't think this should be a precedent is that I think we should be looking at replacement ratios that are, we need to do, Takeda needs to do, and we need to do better than 7% or 6.7%, which is what we're all approving tonight. We should be clear-eyed about that. I'm going to support this measure. I think on balance, I agree with Commissioner Buss that this is a case of the very good, or the perfect being the enemy of not only the good, but the very good. And this is a very good project. I agree with that. I agree with comments that the panels should be up, some panels at least, what could be supported, would be better up on the roof than on the ground. I understand the reasons why all of them cannot be. And overall, I think this is a very good project. But I think we should all be clear-eyed about what we're doing to our trees here. And in our future discussions, which are out of scope tonight, we should be having that discussion about how we protect both trees that are protected and the ones that aren't. So with that, I'll ask the clerk to prepare us for a vote. Thank you.
Commissioner Buss?
Aye.
Commissioner Lanson?
Aye.
Commissioner Link?
Yes?
Commissioner McMahon?
Yes.
Chair Newman?
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Very good. And I want to thank the applicant for your presentation. And again, thank you for being a good citizen of our community. This is a appealable project, so I'm required to state that any aggrieved party who wishes to appeal this Planning Commission decision may do so by filing an appeal with the Community Development Department within 10 days. Again, thank you. We move on now to department reports, but we show none for tonight, so we will move ahead to commissioner comments and AB 1234 reports. Do we have any this evening? With only one meeting before this after our summer break, it's been a pretty quiet time. So we go then to our staff update. Mr. Dugan, are there any follow-up items, announcements, or upcoming issues?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, there are quite a few things coming up. On September 13th, the City Council meeting, there'll be a public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Consolidated Action Plan Evaluation Report. And on the consent calendar, there'll be a contract with an EIR scope of work for Chappelle's Coneo Summit and an amendment to the General Plan Consultant Contract. And two COSCA-related items, an on-call task order for Envirocom for biological monitoring services and Arroyo Coneo invasive plant removal, and an on-call task order for M&S Engineering for assessment and management plan for an unpaved road on the Lang Ranch and Woodridge open space areas. And on September 27th, there will be an item on the consent calendar for an environmental consulting service as well. For item 10B, items upcoming to the Planning Commission, on September 26th, the Planning Commission will have a public hearing regarding a municipal code amendment related to SB 9, efforts to increase the housing supply. And October 10th will be a public hearing regarding a municipal code amendment related to self-storage. So we were busy this summer working on all these.
Quite. Thank you for that, Mr. Dugan. Unless there are any other comments, I will go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you all. We are now adjourned to our next meeting, September 26th, 6 p.m. Good evening, Thousand Oaks.